Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Sebastian Stroller, and today we want to talk about childhood trauma and how childhood trauma shapes our decisions and our lives, and why you may not can identify a childhood trauma behind your decisions and behind your life. A trauma is a moment of receiving or not receiving. If children facing physical violence, then this creates a trauma. And if they're facing this over certain time frame, years, then is it the trauma still just a moment with the experience of X years and so on. Every trauma creates a longing to process, to integrate, and to solve this trauma. In the last video, we had talked about that no external event can solve your inner state. Also, if it's come to a physical trauma with an heuristic intervention, that heuristic intervention is an external event. And process. And that process is not to solve the victim's trauma. It is to punish the perpetrator. And even if the perpetrator get the maximum possible punishment, this won't solve the trauma or the internal state of the victim. Physical violence or any kind of physical violence is easy to understand for us. We understand and we can estimate that that person have to go through, or that person is suffering. But we also have, or we can also create trauma by not doing or not fulfill a child's requirements. In one of my last videos, we talked about if we prevent a newborn from body contact, we would produce a traumatized children. But body contact is not the only thing we have to provide to a child. With a newborn, you won't expect and you won't try to support speaking because you know newborn cannot speak. You won't try to let it walk because you know it cannot. Everything has its time and its time frame when is could or should delivered. If we would let this child on his own, it won't learn to speak, for example. This is in parents' responsibility to engage and to let the child learn, but is also in parents' responsibility to provide love, trust, validation, support, and so on. And like learning to speak and learning to walk and learning to eat, the fulfillment of love, trust, support, validation also has its time when it should get delivered. And if this is missed, no external input can fulfill that. And like the trauma of physical violation create a longing to process, integrate, and solve this, the trauma of not given requirements also generate longings to process, integrate, and solve that. And no external event can solve an inner state. And if parents have expectations to their child that make us proud, for example, the child itself become the external event. And the child is not responsible for to make the parents proud. If parents communicate to their children, make us proud, then this is something that parents have to fulfill themselves. This is the same like if you have expectation in your partner should do this to me or should give me that. That's not the partner's responsibility. That's your one. The same applies to parenting. But if a child grow up in high expectation family, have to compete for the requirements this child should get naturally, this also creates trauma. But the child itself cannot identify that as a trauma. Even the child get an adult, because that situation for that child is normal. It's just like that in my family. My parents are just like that. I have to do that. For them, it can be completely normal. And for the parents, they also may be unaware of what they're doing because they faced that themselves in their childhood. But this competing for the missed requirement needs shaping your entire life. This creates heavy, goal-driven people, or can produce heavy, goal-driven, competing people. we can connect physical trauma or the trauma of loss to a specific event. Even if you don't understand that a loss of a family member creates trauma within you, one day in your life, you will understand that that loss have affected every doing in your life. But if it's come to not receiving development requirements, you can rarely identify it. For you, it's just normal. You go through life in competition, achieving goals, and so on. And it's just normal for you. But to identify this kind of trauma, you just need to look inside yourself and answer you how long your achievement make you happy, produces good feelings, or fulfilled you. And if you running from achievement to achievement to achievement, this is a clear indicator of a trauma. And also possible combinations of physical violation trauma and missed requirements delivery, right? If a child facing child abuse from their parents, then there is clear that this child also not getting love, trust, validation, and so on, right? One exclude the another one. Then you have a combination. We can have this and that, and we can have combinations. And to give you another example that we may not understand, cannot see, and put the world to the or to a mental crisis in humans was the last pandemic with the lockdown. That lockdown led the whole world in the biggest crisis of mental health issues of any kind. Even we could tell people we have to do a lockdown for that reason. You stay home. You can do whatever you want at home, reading books, watching movies, do whatever you want, but you have to stay home. The lockdown was maybe 2 years on off. And even we could give people an explanation of what is going on, why we doing it, and that people can do at home whatever they want. This led the whole world in the biggest mental health crisis humans have ever faced. And we have a human being face that isolation for 29 years. From childhood till the age of 29, controlled what to see, what to experience, who he talked to, and so on. Not, maybe not with bad intentions from his father, but with the outcome that behavior produces. And the Buddha also lost his mother 7 days as he was born. That also mean he don't get mother love and so on, and was facing the expectations from his father. Not even aware of what is going on. Not even have vocabulary or terms for mental trauma, psychology, depression, and so on. He faced isolation trauma of 29 years with an arranged marriage, and he named his son, basically translated, Chain. And if you name your son Chain, that's a I think, a clear indicator of an inner state. And how does he felt? I think you get a good picture if you read his path from moving out from home till Bodhi tree. Then you will get an understanding how it burns inside of him. And no one gave him an explanation why this happened to him. And no one could tell him what to solve. And from outside, you could say he had everything he needs and beyond. No external event can solve an internal state.